Okay, I am now recording. So again, welcome to your first weekend of LI801. I am so happy to be here with you. What I'm going to be doing in this session today is showing you some different ways of navigating our library's webpage. And I'm also going to be focusing upon the specific resources that we have for library and information science. Now, I realize that many of you may already be working in libraries, and you probably have worked for a long time. Some of this will not necessarily be new information because you're already working with patrons, showing them how to find information and so forth. But for many of you, this may be the first time or one of the first times that you've actually used the William Allen White Library's webpage. And that's what I want to make sure that you're comfortable with. I'm also going to be covering areas such as finding the full text of articles when that full text doesn't pop up immediately in databases. And that can happen especially with some of the databases that we have for library and information science. And then finally, I'm going to be covering the access that you have as ESU students to interlibrary loan of books and also document delivery. So what that means is that if the Emporia campus library has a book and you need access to that, if it's in print form, we can do a request so that we can check the book out to you and then we will mail it to you. So that is the access that you are entitled to as Emporia State University students. We can do the same with articles that are only available in print, and we happen to own the print magazine or the print journal in our library. And I'll be showing you how you would do that so that you're comfortable and familiar with that process as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start first up here. And one of the things that I really love to do is show you all shortcuts because you have limited time. And the more shortcuts you know on how to get to the library's webpage and navigate, all the better. So there are many ways that you can get to the library's webpage. You can get to it through Canvas with a few clicks. You can also get to it through the university portal at hornet.emporia.edu. But I'm going to show you the easiest way. The easiest way to get to our library's webpage is type emporia.edu/library. And then you can bookmark that or add that as a favorite on your favorite browser. I'm going to be using Google Chrome today, but everything we do will work on any browser that you prefer to use, depending upon your device. And that's the fastest way to get to our library's webpage. The reason I like emporia.edu.library is that it is a shortcut URL to this longer one that I quite frankly would never be able to remember. So emporia.edu/library, and then you're good to go. So a lot of you may be familiar, or some of you may be familiar with this page. If you're not, I'm going to highlight some areas that we will be discussing today. The first one is something you see here. We have a chat service called Ask a Librarian. When it is not available, you will get this message, but it is generally available on Sundays, basically Sundays through Fridays. Saturdays are the only days that we don't staff our chat service because we don't necessarily get a lot of questions on Saturdays. But if you come back to the library's webpage and it says chat or ask us, and it shows that the chat is available, you can absolutely chat with one of us. I might be staffing during my shift, or it might be one of my colleagues. I would recommend using the Ask a Librarian chat service if you have a very quick question, such as, do you have this book available in print or as an ebook? Do you have this specific article? Things like that. If you have a little bit more of an in-depth research question, definitely don't hesitate to contact me directly. And I think all of you have my contact information in your Canvas course, and I'll show you how to get to that as well. The reason is that chat to me is kind of like texting. Sometimes you can text back and forth with somebody and you suddenly realize, you know what, I probably need to talk to this person directly because something is not going across or it might be getting misinterpreted. And in terms of a research question, I am so happy to set up Zoom appointments or Zoom consultations with you just like we're doing right now. I am very sensitive and very aware of your schedules and also the time zones that everybody is in. Of course, I'm in the central time zone, but I am very happy to accommodate what works for your own time zone. So we can do that, and that's not a problem whatsoever. When this is also available, when the Ask Us chat is available, simultaneously, the Zoom link is also available. Basically, what that means is that you could Zoom in with the same librarian who is also staffing the chat at that time. Again, that's good for quick questions, and we really encourage you to do that. But if you have anything more in depth, don't hesitate to follow up with me. So over here, I actually have 3 icons or 3 links that I'm going to be focusing on right now: the Discovery Search Catalog, databases, and journals. We're going to go to the Discovery Search Catalog first. And probably most of you are familiar with the concept of an online catalog to find books and other materials that are owned by a specific library or maybe by a consortium of libraries. So the Discovery Search Catalog is ESU's online catalog to find print books, ebooks, some articles. I use the Discovery Search Catalog mainly for those particular items. I will tell you one thing that I don't use it for. I do not use the Discovery Search Catalog to find articles, which sounds kind of odd because articles are indeed in the Discovery Search Catalog. But the reason I don't do that is that there are a lot of databases that are actually integrated into the Discovery Search Catalog, which is both good and not so good. It's good because there's a lot of information. It's not so good because there's a lot of information. It really is not going to be the best, or I would say the most targeted source of information if you are looking for articles about a particular topic in library and information science. In that particular case, I would strongly steer you to a more discipline-specific database such as library and information science source. And I'm going to be showing you that one in just a second as well. However, let's say that I'm doing research for a paper, and I mentioned that one of my interests and one of my jobs is assessment. So I deal quite a bit with information literacy skills for undergraduate and graduate students, and I might be interested to see if our library actually has any either print books or, in this case, ebooks, electronic books, that would deal with information literacy and assessments. So this is how I could search. I could do information literacy. And then on my second line, combining this with the word and, I could do assessment. You'll notice something over here. I actually could limit my search. This becomes very important in a database. I'm limiting my search right now to these keywords as they're going to appear in the abstract of a particular record. I always like to start with that particular way first because that's going to narrow and focus your search. If you're ever in a database or a resource in which you find you're getting a ton of records or a ton of results, but they don't seem to be that focused on your topic, the chances are very good that you are doing a keyword search in the complete record of a database. And if the full text of articles happen to be in that particular database, it's also searching the full text. You can get a lot of results that way, but they may not be as relevant to your information need. You can always go back and change your search. Down here are probably going to be my most important limits if I am looking only for print books, or in this case, I really want to see what ebooks the library has access to that deal with these concepts of information literacy and assessment. So I can limit down here to ebooks. It's a great limit. We're going to search. And I have some results. Now, up here, you see a link that says, welcome guest, sign into your institution for full access to your library's resources. As you can probably tell from my background, I'm at home here in Emporia, so I'm off campus just like everybody else. You can do two things at this point. You can either go ahead and click on this link at the very beginning of your search. You would sign in with your ESU username and password. It is exactly the same as Canvas or your email, so it's not a different sign in. If your sign in doesn't work, let us know, because what may have happened is that your password, you may have gotten a prompt at some point to change your ESU password, which we get on a regular basis. Our system here, which is basically a discovery search, doesn't actually connect to Canvas or the ESU email system or any of that. It's a separate system. So what happens is that in very odd cases, it might be trying to remember your old password. And I generally work with several students in the course of a semester that have that. If that happens, you just might have to clear the cache from your browser and then start all over again, because it may be trying to remember your old password. But generally, it just should be your ESU username and your password. Or, since I haven't signed in yet, that sounds kind of interesting. It was published in 2018. And the PDF full text tells me that it is an ebook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. Since I haven't signed in yet, I could also sign in at this point. And we'll sign in. Let that load. There we go. Now, I believe the majority of you are also using ebooks as your textbooks with LI801. And so in this case, a screen like this may look rather familiar. There is something that I do want to note for many of you. So I know that in some of the cases, the textbooks you might be using for your SLIM classes have a limit of something like 3 simultaneous users. There are other ebooks that are available, and this is one that would have unlimited copies available. And I often get questions from SLIM students. This is kind of good to know as future information professionals. Sometimes SLIM students will say to me, well, why is this limited to 3 simultaneous users? You know, we need more access. Well, this is a really good example of the publisher having that, I wouldn't say control, but the publisher can actually specify to the vendor of ebooks. In this case, the vendor is EBSCOhost, which we'll come back to in just a second. The publisher is basically the person, or I shouldn't say person, but the entity who can say to a vendor, this is only going to be restricted to one user or 3 simultaneous users. Or in this case, this particular one has unlimited copies available. I wish, like anything, that we could change it. It is something that I think is a good thing to be aware of at a meta level, that often the publishers of different databases or the publishers of ebooks do have quite a bit of authority over what we can access and what we cannot access. So kind of gets into the question of equitable access. But I did want to show you this one because since this has unlimited copies available, there's some different things that I can do with this. When you're in an ebook, if you want to download just a chapter of an ebook in PDF, you can do that by just going over here to download chapter. It looks like it might limit me just to 100 pages. It's saying unlimited copy and paste, so not quite sure about that. But the unrestricted download and the unlimited copies available, this means that with this specific ebook, I could do a number of things. I might just want to read some of these chapters online, directly online, and get what I need, or download a chapter. However, since this one does have unlimited copies available, This actually would be a good candidate for checking out a copy of this ebook in order to be able to read it offline. A lot of you may be using ebooks from your public library. Here in Kansas, we have something called Cloud Library from the state of Kansas. And then we also have a consortium of public libraries. It's called Sunflower eLibrary, and they have a ton of ebooks for recreational reading. So I use that extensively as well. The concept is very similar. We're going to go over here to sign in. This is going to be a different kind of sign in. And if I want to check out a copy of an ebook, I have to sign into something that's called an EBSCOhost account. So I'm already signed in with my Emporia username and password, but I'm going to have to sign in again to my EBSCOhost account to be able to check out this ebook. An EBSCOhost account is going to be important in just a second for a database. Now, having said that, I could click on Continue with Google. And you could sign in via Google with your ESU username and password. And I say that because you do not have to create a totally separate EBSCOhost account with a different username and a different password. If you want to integrate this with your ESU username and password, definitely do that. And that's what I'm going to do here. And again, this is the process that I would use if I just really wanted to check out a copy of this ebook so that I could read it offline. I'll wait for that to load again. Should have recognized my sign in, so I'm going to make sure it does that again. Yes. There we go. All righty. I don't know why I had to do that twice, but for some reason I did. Make sure that when you do this, it says not your name or update my account. Make sure that you are indeed signed in. Oh, had a question from Sarah. What is the other option to signing into EBSCOhost? The other option would be to create a completely new account. And you would be creating that with a new username and a new password. And you can do that if you want. If it's more convenient for you just to sign in with Google with your ESU username and password, you can do that as well. So I hope that helped. Thanks for asking. So now what I want to do is go to full download. And I'm going to check my sharing here. Yes, you should all still be able to see this. So what I can do at this point is this is telling me that I can download a copy of the ebook for 14 days to read offline. 14 is the maximum that is set, again, by the publisher. Be sure that you click this box, even though you might not already have Adobe Digital Editions downloaded. This is the only thing that I think is a little bit cumbersome about this process. So Adobe Digital Editions, if you click on this link, that is a free software program that you can download, and that will enable you to be able to read the books. So it's not really going to, it says downloaded in PDF. In reality, you have to have Adobe Digital Editions installed in order to be able to read the book offline. So click that even if you don't have it installed, because you actually then could click on this link. And this would allow you to go ahead and download that for a Mac or for Windows. I'm going to go back over here. I do have Adobe Digital Editions downloaded, so I'm going to do a full download here. And I'm going to close this window. I'm going to click on my download down here, and then I'm going to share my screen again to make sure you can see this. Let's do this. Go back to new share. Yes, I know. There we are. I had it checked out before and then I checked it out again. And let me go here. There we go. And I think you all should be able to see that now. I'm just making sure. Yes. Okay. So I can now read this one offline for 14 days. The nice part about it is that since I have this downloaded offline, I could make this here. There we go. I could create a bookmark if I wanted to. I can highlight different parts of the book. And if I were to check this particular copy of the book back in and then check it back out again, since I'd be using my same EBSCOhost account, my bookmarks and then my highlighting would still be saved. I'm going to go back here, back to our screen. Again, not anything that you actually have to do, but it's kind of nice to know that you do have that option. I would do that for ebooks that have unlimited copies available. For any of your textbooks, or honestly for any other books that just have maybe 3 simultaneous users, the bad part about that is you're taking one of those copies out of circulation for 14 days. So I would just be kind of mindful of that. I'm going to click back over here. And make sure that you are, yes, perfect. Okay. So the second button that I wanted to highlight for you all is one that's probably going to be one of the most important ones for your research, and it's databases. And those of you who are working in libraries, or if you're coming out of your undergraduate programs, you're probably going to be really familiar with the idea of online databases to do research in different topics, to find references to articles and the full text of many articles. We have a number of databases under all subjects and the subject of library and information science. So we have a number of databases that are focused much more upon library and information science. Now, our field is very interdisciplinary. So as you get further into your SLIM program, you may have to do some additional research in databases relating to psychology, sociology for the socioeconomic aspects of information use, and so forth. So you may have to broaden your search out a little bit. But this is a really great place to start. You can email me directly here if you like at ckane1@emporia.edu. And my phone number is 620-341-5480. You can always call if I'm not in my office, leave me a voicemail, and I'll be happy to get back with you. So we're not going to go through every single one of these because it just kind of depends on what you need. We do have a wonderful resource. It's called Academic Writer. This is from the American Psychological Association. Academic Writer is a way that you can actually write your papers, and it will help in terms of the formatting for APA style, which is what you use in SLIM. And let me know if you ever are interested more in Academic Writer. I have different tutorials, and I'd be happy to work with you on that. But the one we're going to focus on is Library and Information Science Source. So I'm going to click on this. Now, something to keep in mind here, remember that I was already in the Discovery Search Catalog, and I logged in to that resource with my ESU username and password. Because I have not exited this search yet, I haven't exited my browser, it remembered my login, so I didn't have to log back into this database. If you're getting into the Library and Information Science Source or any of our databases for the first time, you will be prompted again to log in with your ESU username and password. So I'm going to show you again, as I promised, some hints for searching. First hint, always go to an advanced search in a database. Don't start with the basic search. The basic search will get you results, but again, it's going to get you probably a lot of results that are not relevant to your information need. This will probably look familiar. I had signed into my EBSCOhost account on the Discovery Search Catalog to check out that ebook, I can also click on sign in here. This is probably one of my favorite parts. I'm going to continue with Google again. So what I'm doing in Library and Information Science Source is signing back into my EBSCOhost account, but I'm doing this for a different reason this time. Okay. And since my EBSCOhost account is basically the same, it's kind of reminding me that I did check out one ebook up here, which is kind of neat. But the reason I signed into my EBSCOhost account for Library and Information Science Source is that now I can save articles in my EBSCOhost account as I go along. I can save my search history if I want to rerun a search later on. There's just a lot of things that I could do that are a little bit more difficult if you're not signed into your EBSCOhost account. So I really encourage you to do that whenever you're in a database. I'm going to do my same search. Remember that abstract? Information literacy. And assessment. Down here, I can do different limits since I'm in a database looking for articles. So very often, your SLIM professors will want you to find scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. This is actually one very easy way of limiting your search. Now, sometimes these are the definitions according to the database, so you still may get some articles that are maybe kind of on the fence as far as peer-reviewed are concerned, but this is a good way of starting so that at least you have a better chance of getting scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. I could limit specifically to an academic journal, although I've already limited over here, so I don't have to do that. I could limit by a range of years if I wanted more current information. There is a limit that I'm not going to do, though, which might kind of surprise some people. I am not limiting my results just to the full text of articles, and there's a reason for this. We're going to go back up here, and I'm just going to do a quick search. In reality, I would be limiting my search a little bit more because 649 references are a lot to go through. But in the interest of time, I just want to show you what this is going to look like. So I have a really good one here first, knowing and doing. The PDF full text is there. So I could, if I wanted to, download the PDF of this article directly to my computer or other device, but I also could do something else. Now that I'm signed in my EBSCOhost account, I could go over here to this little link that says add to folder. And what I just did was add this article to this folder that I'm signed in with my EBSCOhost account. Why would you want to do that? Well, sometimes you're doing a search for different articles and you're really pressed for time. Maybe you're doing it on a break from work. If you sign into your EBSCOhost account and if you save articles to your folder, you don't have to remember where they are. You don't have to remember, did I download them to a specific folder on my computer? Did I email them? What did I do? Keep adding articles to your folder, and then they will always stay in your EBSCOhost account until you decide that you want to delete them. And it's probably one of the best and most efficient ways that I can think of for doing that type of work. And I'm going to show you in just a second what you can do then with the folder. So I've added this. You can also add articles to your folder from the search screen as well. Notice that something popped up here. Within the folder, you can go in here and you can say that you want to create a new custom folder. So I might want to call this one Information Literacy and Assessment. I won't limit there. And if I save this, I now have a new subfolder for information literacy and assessment. This is a wonderful option if you are doing research for more than one class and more than one topic. I'm going to show you something else here too. Notice that I'm going to click on this back link here. I'm not clicking on this back button, which is very tempting to do. The reason is that if I click on this back button, it's sort of like if you're filling out a form online and you click on back and you see that the form has expired. The same thing can happen within a database. It might have expired behind the scenes, kicks you out of the database, and you start all over again. And you don't want to do that. Use the navigation within the database. And that's going to keep you logged in, and it will keep you within your search. So let's look at record number 2. I don't have the PDF full text for record number 2, but that's a very timely article. I can click on this link here, and I can read the abstract to see if that really would relate to my information need, which it looks like it would be a very good one. But I don't have the full text. So this is kind of a next tip I want to give you, because this part is not obvious. So there's a very good chance that our library subscribes to this journal, the Journal of Library Administration. We might be subscribing to it as a separate e-journal, and that's why it's not popping up in full text in this database. But I really want to see if I could get the full text of this article from our library in another way. So as you see, what I did was highlight and copy the title of the article. When you are in our search, the original tab for the University Libraries and Archives should always be there. I'm now going to go back to the Discovery Search Catalog, because this is where the catalog can actually link me automatically to other e-journals or other databases in full text that may actually have this article. So I pasted the title of the article, and I'm going to search, and there it is. So do this as your next step. So if I click on LibKey Instant PDF, I knew that we subscribed to this one separately, so, and there's the article. So I didn't have to do interlibrary loan or say, well, I can't use this. So if you have an article like this that doesn't immediately have the full text available, your next step would be to copy and paste the title of the article, go back to the library's webpage, search for the title of that article in the Discovery Search Catalog, and see if it is available in another database or in another e-journal. And again, I'm using the links within here. So I'm going to go back to my result list. Now, a lot of these are available in PDF full text already, which is terrific. Okay. And there's another one from Journal of Library Administration, which does happen to be available. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to find one as an example. Okay, so I'm going to use record number 15 as an example. So I'm just going to say, for the interest of time, that I did my copy and paste for this article, and it did not appear in our catalog. So in other words, we do not, let's say that we just don't have this specific one available in full text anywhere as far as the library is concerned. This is when you can go to this link for interlibrary loan. And this is a great link. So I'm going to retype my password because I have a feeling it might have saved an old password here. You can log on again with your ESU username and password. That's what I was afraid of. that. Oh, come on. Let's see, the third time's a charm, or it's still, third time was a charm. There we go. So this is why I really like the interlibrary loan feature within a database. See what it did? It populated your request automatically. You don't have to copy and paste anything. And you can click on submit your request. It doesn't matter where you live. What will happen with an article is that you will get either the PDF of the article in your ESU email, or you will receive a link to click on to get the PDF of the article. No charge for this. So you are entitled to this as Emporia State University students. Please, please make use of this. If you find articles in a database that are just simply not available in full text in our library, even after you check the Discovery Search catalog. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to folder for just a second. And you can see that I've been doing a lot of searches for different disciplines. Let's go ahead and go to this one. And now I'm in my folder. Now, you can do something at this point. Oh, Keith, thank you so much. I appreciate that. At this point, again, since I'm in my folder, I could go back to the PDF full text. I had a PDF full text of this particular article. I could email this article to myself, and for some reason I did want to do that. If I email this to myself, I'll just type my email there. And if I were emailing this article and the record, I could say that I wanted the citation in the article to appear in APA style. I do want to show you though something. The cite feature over here will also let you convert this specific record into APA style or other styles, such as Chicago. And your SLIM professors are definitely going to back me up on this one. So here's the thing. This converted this particular record to APA style for a journal article, but it's not entirely correct. The metadata of the original record had these words capitalized. And with APA style, these following words, such as crossfire, public library action, would have to be put in lowercase. So in other words, you can copy an APA citation that you've generated from a database, and you can paste that into a working bibliography or a working references list. But please be sure that you are double and triple checking to see if there are any errors that need to be corrected. And go back to any help features that your professors have given you for APA style. I can help a little bit with APA style as well. So if you had a question, you could absolutely contact me, but you really have to be careful on that. And that's very true. I was looking at the chat. Yes, I totally agree. It's a great start. It's much easier than writing, just starting all over again with writing an APA style citation, but you've got to double check for those errors. So I'm watching our time because I want to make sure that I stop my recording and allow time for questions. I'm going to go back over here to our library's webpage. So a couple of other quick things, and then I'll let you know when I stop the recording, and then we can do questions. The third link over here I wanted to let you know about is a link called Journals. And this is something that you might not have had a chance to see maybe in other libraries. So this link for Journals, you don't want to use this if you're looking for a topic and you're looking for articles on that topic. Use one of our databases, such as Library and Information Science Source, for that. But this is incredibly handy if one of your SLIM professors says, why don't you just start browsing through some articles or table of contents from a journal? I love doing this. So my professor might have said, why don't you take a look and see what articles have been published in the last year from the journal called Reference Services Review. I can go to my journals link, start typing in the name of the journal, and if it is available through our library, it'll pop up. And you see we had others as well. This is giving some preprints or ahead of print issues. And I just clicked on volume 49, issue 2 for Reference Services Review. This is exactly like browsing through a copy of that journal issue in print. So I really like this the system that we use is called browsing. That's exactly what it is. It's perfect for browsing through articles electronically. It's also good if you go down here to see all. For Reference Services Review, I'm going to click on Full Text Access. So we have access to Reference Services Review electronically from April 1st of 1997 to present, but this is kind of a good wrap up for where I do want to stop. The library also has older copies of Reference Services Review. We have a lot of print journals and a lot of print magazines that are not going to be available electronically. So if for some reason I needed an article from Reference Services Review and it was from 1973, well, you know, I'm not here in Emporia to actually go look at this, but again, this is kind of a good wrap up. If you wanted a print copy of a book that's owned by the library or a print copy of an article that's owned by the library, you can use the interlibrary loan link that's down here. So this is the same interlibrary loan link. I was already logged in, so it recognized that. But if I wanted to get a print copy of an article or a print copy of a book, even that's just owned by our library, click on whatever new request matches. And in this case, I could fill out the information for an article, a specific article, say from Reference Services Review from 1973. Down here under notes, specify that you are a distance education student. And in this case, for the article, you would need a copy of that article in PDF to be scanned and sent to you. And we do this with a lot of print copies of our articles. Again, no charge for that. If you need a book that's owned by another library or a book that's owned by the Emporia campus library, then do new request for book. Same thing here. Fill out the information about the book. And do the same thing if you would under notes. Say that you are a distance education student and you need to have that book mailed to you. Now, in the case of print books, you do have to pay the postage, unfortunately, to mail them back to our library. I wish that we had the money to cover that, and we don't. But please keep in mind, this is access that you have as Emporia State University students. Turnaround time on ILLs. If it is an article that we're scanning in for you or an article that's owned by another library, probably about 24 to 48 hours. If it is a print book that we're mailing to you, it'll probably be in the mail by, I would say, the next working day. If it is a print book that we're having to request from another library, I would allow about a week because we have to contact the other library, see if they have it or if it's already checked out or if we have to go to another library. So I would kind of give you that time range. But if it's something that owned by our library, about 24 to 48 hours. So pretty quick turnaround time. Okay, at this point, I'm going to give you all a heads up. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.